Hi you guys, it's Amanda with Healthy House on the block, and I'm here with another weekly tip and video on creating an indoor space that truly supports your health and your wellness. And sometimes what we need to do is really adjust how we're thinking, and we need to make some mindset shifts to really help us move forward in creating a healthy home. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how sometimes the toxins in our lives and the toxins in our homes are actually necessary. So one of the big things that comes into play when you're creating a very healthy environment at home is reducing plastic. And I am all for reducing plastic wherever I can. We try to do it in the kitchen, we try to do it with toys, but it is actually not something that you can do in all places. So for example, bike helmets or sports helmets, car seats, those have plastic and a lot of times a foam in them that can be toxic to our bodies. However, these things are life-saving, and so we need these things to be in our lives and in our spaces. We have to use them, because if we don't, we can have a risk of injury or even death. And so I'm going to cover some of these things that we need to kind of let go of. There's bigger things in your home that you can actually focus on that are very changeable, and there are things in your home that we have to learn to just let go of, because in changing them, we're not actually going to reduce a lot of toxins, and we're not actually going to improve our space that much, especially when you compare it to the amount of time or money that you have to invest. So stick with me today, and we are going to shift some of those things that you can get hung up on when you're creating a healthy home, and we'll push past them.
So one thing that is so important to understand is that some toxins are not only necessary, but life-saving. It's also really important to know that some toxins are actually naturally occurring toxins. And while we don't want it inside of our home impacting our health, it's a necessary toxin that is outdoors as a part of nature. In order to create a healthy home, many of us try to actually reduce plastic and plastic toxins wherever we can. In fact, I myself try to reduce the amount of plastic inside when it comes to toys, which can feel kind of impossible, kitchen items, and even packaging. But there are some instances where plastic and plastic toxins are actually necessary and life-saving. So one of my favorite examples of this is car seats and helmets, from biking to skiing and all the helmets in between. So not only does the plastic contain phthalates, bisphenols, and other toxins, but likely the styrofoam supports inside these items are also toxic. But without these two components, helmets and car seats just would not be as safe. Helmets and car seats are life-saving in accidents, and I think that we can all agree that these are necessary items to have and to use in our homes. So I actually learned this truth that some toxins are life-saving when my youngest son was born. Without life-saving medical intervention and tube feeding rehabilitation as a newborn, he wouldn't be able to have a normal lifestyle. While we were in the moment, I hated that there were plastic tubes in and around him for his first 6 months of life. In fact, I actually worried about the impacts that they could have on his health as he grew older. But it was 100% necessary, and there was no safe way around having him in the NICU or fed by tubes. It literally saved his life. So many medical components are made of materials that contain polyvinyl chloride and other toxins, but they are so necessary when you need them. So while I know that it can be really frustrating that there are toxins in your home, especially when you're working so hard to create a healthy environment, it's also important to be able to let go of the things that you can't change. So with a few mindset shifts, you can quite easily shift your focus to the positive aspects of a healthy home. So mindset shift number 1 is to focus on what you have complete control over. This is probably the hardest shift, but the most important shift. Sometimes when we become super excited about creating a healthy home and environment in our house, it's quickly deflated by the realization that not everything is within our control. And this could be for a number of reasons, because while everything is probably changeable in your home, it all comes with a price of both your money and your time. And so there are things you probably just can't change, whether it's your vinyl windows or your wall-to-wall carpet. Those may be something you plan to change down the road, or maybe there's something that you just choose to leave. That's okay. Focus on the easiest things that you have total control over instead, and make whatever changes you can there. So mindset shift number 2 is that you can still have a healthy home even if it has toxins in it. A healthy home isn't totally free from toxins, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. It certainly isn't an all or nothing type of thing. Instead, remember that our body is always detoxing the chemicals and toxins that we come into contact with. And so, by reducing whatever toxins we can, we are allowing our body to more efficiently detox what it can without becoming burdened. So the goal is just to reduce toxins as much as possible, not necessarily get rid of them altogether, which in my opinion is a very unattainable goal. You have to learn to be okay with the toxins in your space that may stick around. You have to make a conscious effort to let those things go and instead focus on the toxins that you can reduce. And our final mindset shift is that nothing is a permanent change or situation. So this has been a huge hurdle for me in many areas of my life. I have to remember that nothing is really permanent, whether it's positive or negative. Every phase my kids have gone through, I still have to remind myself that this isn't a permanent phase that sticks around forever. The world and we ourselves are constantly changing and shifting. Places in your home that might contain toxins that you feel frustrated about aren't there forever. Instead, remember that you can plan ahead and you can make changes down the road. You just have to be very intentional about those changes and work towards your goal one step at a time. So I truly believe that a healthy home is a process, and the process begins with the changes you make immediately. There are things that get the ball rolling and give you momentum to change more and keep reducing toxins in more places. These immediate swaps and changes are usually the first step to any healthy space. They're the things that will likely have a huge impact on your space with very little effort or investment from you. And the second part of creating a healthy home is the planning phase. So in order to change your home in big ways all at once, it really takes planning ahead and budgeting to be able to do so. So this is where so many of us get hung up. It's a huge undertaking to try to research and change areas of your home that you're not familiar with, or areas that you have to start from scratch with. You can't have a truly toxin-free home without these two phases and steps. But it's the second phase of planning that needs some guidance and advice, and it's the whole reason I created the Healthy Home Blueprint. I wanted to be able to outline exactly how to plan out creating a healthy home, or creating your own customized blueprint of how you'll be changing your space in the future. It's easy for most of us to just check items off a to-do list. The hard part is coming up with the super simple, specific tasks to put on the list that will move us in the direction we want. And that is exactly what the Healthy Home Blueprint is. It's a way to both change your home now with small and effortless changes, but also plan ahead to create a home with as few toxins as possible in the months and the years to come. So let's look at the best areas to focus on. Indoor air quality is literally the best spot to start in your home. And the good news is that it can be so easy to change this part of your house, essentially opening windows, running vented fans, using an air purifier can drastically change your indoor air quality and improve it. It can be one of the simplest ways to reduce toxins that are in house dust, as well as off-gassing VOCs, formaldehyde, and even radon gases. Flooring is a change you'll likely have to plan ahead for, but it is one of the most impactful changes you can make in a healthy home. Not only is there huge amounts of flooring all throughout your home, but it's a really high touch area on a frequent basis. So think of how often you're touching your floor. It's likely the entire time that you're home. And if you have kids, this one matters even more because of their close proximity to flooring throughout the day. So plan ahead for smooth surface flooring that is free from formaldehyde, VOCs, and PFTEs. And then finally, getting rid of plastic in the kitchen is often easier than you might think, but it has a huge impact on your health and wellness. Toxins that are coming in contact with food we eat can have negative impacts on our liver, our gut, and in our entire body. And a lot of times what it boils down to is just adjusting our habits and how we store our food and the items we have accumulated over the years. So swapping out plastic containers and food storage bags can seem very tedious, but I promise you it will be so worth it in the long run. And once you start swapping, it's just a matter of time before your whole kitchen is really free from toxins. But there are also areas that aren't worth worrying about when you're trying to change your home in big ways. And the main reason that the threat they pose is lower than the amount of time and effort it will take to replace them is because they are not high touch areas, or we are really not exposed to those toxins because they're enclosed. So the first thing is your drywall. Unless you're going to be renovating or adding new drywall, it never pays to rip out perfectly good drywall to swap it with toxin free or a low toxin option. Because drywall is painted and likely has off-gassed for a few years, it's not a huge health threat to you or your family. It's one of those areas to just let go of and change it in the future if you can or want to. But if you're not going to be remodeling, don't worry about it. Look at it as a bonus change when it comes up. Enclosed insulation is another thing we really don't need to worry about because insulation is often enclosed and it's not being touched, and it's a very low item on the priority list of changes. Oftentimes there is no way you're being exposed to insulation in your home unless you open up a wall or you go into your attic. Insulation that is exposed can be sealed off so it won't be touched, and that you could change if you really wanted to. But for the most part, insulation within your walls, while it may be toxic, poses no health concerns as you're not breathing in the particles or touching it. Appliances are a big one. So while you can opt for lower toxin appliances in your home, all appliances will have some toxins. And so I never recommend removing perfectly good appliances and replacing them just to lower the toxin level. If you're going to replace an appliance anyways, then you could think about the benefits of researching and finding a lower toxin option, but just know that there's no completely toxin-free appliance. And so while you could reduce the level of toxins, you'd never really get rid of them completely. And then finally, off-gassed or cured materials. So unless you're going to be doing a project, it isn't advised to rip out caulking or add paint to a room to somehow reduce the toxins in your space. Likely both of these products and materials have done the most off-gassing they will over time, and so to redo the project using lower toxin materials and products, it just doesn't make sense. However, I do think it's important to know what building materials you should use for home projects coming up, and definitely opt for a low toxin option as you plan ahead for the future, but don't do the project just for toxin's sake. So even if you've been creating a healthy home for a while, it's important to have these gentle reminders from time to time. Remember that using what you can and making positive changes with that is the best you can do. stress and frustration are toxic to our bodies. So let go of the changes you can't make right now and remember the principles that we talked about.
So as always, thank you so much for being here. I hope you will subscribe to my channel. I'm here every single week with a new video, a new topic on creating an indoor space that supports your health and your wellness rather than burdens it down.